Hi, I hope you all had a very meaningful Rosh Hashanah. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the time we find ourselves in, time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, what we call the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of Tshuva. And one can ask oneself, kind of like, why can I just be satisfied with getting a good judgment during this time of year? Why go through all the trouble, waking up early, staying up late, slichot, doing a cheshbon nefesh, and accounting of the soul? What if I'm okay with just being okay in the eyes of Hashem? So leave aside how, in my experience, it's often only in the spiritual or religious realm that people are happy where they are. I know very few people who say, oh, I make plenty of money, I don't need more. I don't need a bump in salary, I don't need more vacation time. It's not there. It's often only in the religious and spiritual. I'm okay where I am, Rabbi. I'm okay. So, but leaving that aside, what is it that we're missing out on when we take this attitude of just staying in neutral, being okay with our character? I recently had an experience that reminded me of this. I'm often asked, why do I love living in Israel? And I do. I love living in Israel. And there are so many reasons. But basically, I love living with my family, Am Yisrael, the Jewish people. I do. And while that sometimes means that it's dafka family member who cuts you off in traffic, therefore, or gives you disappointing service in the store, still, it's wonderful, so wonderful being here with my immediate and extended family. In the old days when I used to travel, pre-corona, I used to get emotional. My mom used to get emotional every time I landed back home in Israel. And so I had this experience that reminded me again and again why I love living here just before Rosh Hashanah. I went to the supermarket and my son had asked me to pick up, we have all the simanim, all of the special things we eat on Rosh Hashanah night, apples with honey and dates and carrots and everything. And so some people have the custom of having a fish head, right? We should be like the head, not like the tail. We should have a good year. So my son had asked me to pick him up a couple of fish heads. And I went to the fish counter and there was quite a long line. And I asked someone who was waiting there, I said, do you know if they're selling fish heads? And he said, no, I have no idea. But that's not all he did. He then said, and so I told him, my son, he said, well, I just ordered actually a couple of fish and they're scaling it and they're cutting it up for me and they're filleting it and everything. I don't want the fish heads. Why don't you take the fish heads and take them? I said, wow, that'd be great. And so he calls to behind the counter, please put the fish heads separately, wrap them up. And when he got the fish, he took them and like ceremoniously, he turned to me and he handed them to me and said, Shana Tova. And it was just a wonderful moment. It was really kind of like, the Gemara talks about this one benefits and this one doesn't lose out, which is one of the mantras of my life. It was just a fantastic moment. But it was indicative, it wasn't just the moment that really resonated for me, it was so much more than that. Had he just answered my question and said, no, I don't know why if they're selling fish heads, that would have been fine. He wasn't hurting me by saying, I don't know, but he didn't. He asked why. In a way, can I help you? And when I told him, that's when he said, oh, I can help you out. And please take the fish heads for your son's Rosh Hashanah table. It's such a little thing, but it gave me such a nice feeling. And when I delivered the fish heads to my son and told him what happened, it did the same for him. So this time of year, well, the whole year, but this time of year, especially when we find ourselves in this kind of like days of awe, it's all about a mindset. It's all about an attitude. How can I help? Of an attitude of putting on certain glasses and looking at the world in a certain way and saying to yourself, I'm looking out for opportunities to do chesed. I believe it's a truism that we tend to find what we're looking for in life. If you want to look at the world in a pessimistic attitude, then you'll find yourself living in a negative world. If you want to look at the world in a positive attitude, then you will find yourself living in a happier world. And if you want to look at the world trying to see chesed opportunities, then you will surely find them. And the world will be a better place for it, and you will as well. And there are two amazing ancestors of ours. There are many, but I'm going to focus on two. Moshe Rabbeinu and Avram Avinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher, Moshe, who's our mentor, who is our everything, in the aftermath of hitting in the rock, and where Hashem tells him that your life's dream of going to the land of Israel, you're not going to have. And I want you, it's in the 27th chapter of Bamidbar. And he says, not only that, not only you're not going to go in, but like he says, right away, appoint your successor. Your main disciple, your main student, Yehoshua, Joshua, he says to him in Perek Chaf Zayin, in Pasuk Yurchet to Kaf, he says to him, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Kach l'cha et Yoshua ben Nun, take for yourself Joshua ben Nun, Ish asher ruach bo, he who has the spirit of Hashem with him, v'samachtat yadcha alav, and place your hand upon him. Right? Give them that smicha, that ordination that we have, and appoint him officially as your successor. And appoint him in front of Elazar, the high priest, in front of the entire community and congregation, and command him in front of all of them, so everyone knows that he's now taking over. You're not going to be in charge. This is the end of your road. Yeshua is taking them in. And Hashem says to him, "Alav, give him from your authority, from your majesty, L'man yishmu kol hadat b'nei Yisrael, in order that the children of Israel shall obey him." But what does it say? So Hashem said, place your hand upon him, signifying, show the people that you're transferring the power. But what happens? Go a couple of psukim later. It says, Vayas Moshe kasher tziva Hashem oto, that Moshe did exactly, which is difficult enough in that situation. He did exactly what Hashem said, as difficult as it might have been, that this is his life dream being taken away from him. And he takes Joshua, and he stands there in front of him, in front of the entire community, in front of the entire nation and the high priest. Vayismoch et yadav alav. But he doesn't place one hand on Joshua. He places both hands on him. And he appoints him, as Hashem said, that he doesn't just do it when he shows, I'm doing it wholehearted. Just because I had a bad day, just because I'm not, I'm like devastated, brokenhearted what's happened, but I'm thrilled for my disciple. I'm thrilled for him. Why should I be angry at him? He didn't do anything that caused me to lose the leadership. I've been his mentor. I've been his Rav. But you do know how hard that is? How hard that is for Moshe Rabbeinu still? It doesn't come easy to him. That Hashem he put double. That's what a leader. That's why we refer to Moshe as our greatest leader, our greatest prophet. Because this is when he got upset, when he got sad, when he got brokenhearted, this is the way he reacted. And then in the parsha that we read yesterday, in Parshat Vayelech, also now he's coming mamish to the very end of his life. Moshe Rabbeinu says in front of the Jewish people twice to Yoshua, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and be resolute, and letting him know, I love you. I care for you, Yoshua. You are going to take over. You can do a great job. And even though his heart is breaking inside, this is the message that he's giving across. This is who Moshe Rabbeinu is. And then Avram Avinu also. Avram Avinu, who is our paragon of chesed, right? Every child in kindergarten knows this. We talk to them about the different, about Moshe, we talk about Moshe Rabbeinu and who his leadership was all about. But you ask anyone about Avram Avinu, even though he was a diplomat, he was a warrior, he was a businessman, he was a prophet, he was so much. But if you ask even a 3-4-year-old child in kindergarten, a Jewish gan, what does Avram Avinu represent? Chesed, about going the extra mile. And if you want to see mamish, the perfect example of what it means to be a great host, what it means to be a paragon of chesed, and just opening your home and opening your life and saying, this is what my life is all about, it's Avram Avinu. Look at the first 9 psukim of Parshat Toldot, right? It's chapter 18 in Sefer Bereshit. And we're just going to look at the first pasuk when it talks about that Abraham is sitting out kechom hayom. He's sitting out in the middle of the day, in the heat of the day, waiting for guests to come. And Rashi, our famous commentator, says, Kechom hayom, what does it mean in the heat of the day? He quotes the Gemara in Bava Metzia. Look it up. It is in Pei Va'av Amud Bet. And he says, the Gemara there says, Hotzia Kadosh Baruch Hu Chama min Artika. Hashem made the day an incredibly hot day, a sunny day, that people wouldn't venture in the middle of the day. Why? that Avram Avinu would not be bothered by because he just had his bris, he just had a circumcision at 99 years old, which is an incredibly painful thing. So Hashem wanted him to be able to rest. But as much physical pain that Avram was in, he was more emotional pain. Because we continue the Gemara that Rashi is quoting, because Hashem saw that Avram was in spiritual pain, much worse than the physical pain, because he wasn't able to host anyone. He wasn't able to open up his home that day. Hashem sent the heavenly angels in apparitions to appear as people for Avram, said he could fill that mission, because Avram was in tremendous pain not being able to have guests. Talking about you wearing the right glasses of seeing the world in a right way. And then towards the very end of his life, we see a very interesting pasuk to do with Abraham. Once again, it's the first pasuk of a parak in this time in Chaf Daled, that Abraham is coming towards the end of his life, and he just buried his partner in life, his soulmate, the matriarch Sarah Imenu. And it says, "Va'Avraham zakim ba bayamim." Avraham was old, advanced in years. Vashem beirachet Avram bakol, and Hashem has blessed Avram in all things, with everything. What does it mean? With everything. They blessed Hashem with everything. And so, different rabbis say different things. They talk about Hashem that He's given him wealth, that He's given him no more tests, that He's given him finally relaxation, all different things. But Rav Avraham ben Rambam, the Rambam's son, talks about that his son, that Hashem had blessed him with a son. But why now? Yitzchak is already a man, right? He's already at least 37 years old when this pasuk is written. So why is it saying that he's blessed him now? Why is it talking about he's blessed him with everything, that it's his son? Because now is the time Hashem is preparing him for that last best nachas that Avram is going to have in life. That this is the moment where his son is going to meet his beshert. His son is going to meet his soulmate. This is the beginning of the story, how we found Rivka Imenu, Rebecca, our mother, our matriarch, and who will marry Yitzchak. So this is where it talks about Hashem blessing him with everything, that his son will marry well, a woman who will be his partner, who will enable him to become Yitzchak Avinu, right? To enable to become our forefather Yitzchak. He's not there yet, but Rivka will allow him to become that man, a woman who he can bring into the tent of his mother, and he will be consoled and he will be comforted. And what greater nachas is there for a father? And so therefore the pasuk does say Hashem indeed has blessed Abraham with everything. It's as if he says to him, and this message reverberates throughout the generations, right down to our time as well. Abraham, Moshe, you did all you could for chesed, for sanctifying my name. Now I'm doing for you. Just open yourself up. When you say that I'm okay to be okay, you lose this opportunity. So let's open ourselves up to what we can do. I want to share one quick story about, it's called a simple gesture. It's a true story. A simple gesture, what you can do. Even if you're not even trying to do something great, but if you're just trying to do chesed, and how powerful that can be. Let's listen to this. Mark was walking home from school one day when he noticed that the boy ahead of him had tripped and dropped all of the books he was carrying, along with 2 sweaters, a baseball bat, a glove, and a small tape recorder. Mark knelt down and helped the boy pick up the scattered articles. Since they were going the same way, he helped to carry part of the burden. As they walked, Mark discovered that the boy's name was Bill. They loved video games, baseball, history. He was having a lot of trouble with his other subjects, and he had just broken up with his girlfriend. Mark went home after dropping Bill at his house. They continued to see each other around school, had lunch together once or twice, then both graduated from junior high school. They ended up in the same high school where they again had brief contacts over the years. Finally, the long-awaited senior year, the matric year came. 3 weeks before graduation, Bill asked Mark if they could talk. Bill reminded him of the day years ago when they first met. "Do you ever wonder why I was carrying so many things home that day?" asked Bill. "You see, I cleaned out my locker because I didn't want to leave a mess for anyone else. I had stored away some of my mother's sleeping pills, and I was going home to commit suicide. But after we spent some time together talking and laughing, I realized that if I killed myself, I would have missed that time and so many others that would follow. So you see, Mark, when you picked up my books that day, you did a lot more. You saved my life." That's what happens when we're not just okay with being okay. Now, you just are content with being just okay, knowing what you could do otherwise, what you could do, what you could accomplish? I surely hope not. It doesn't have to be saving someone's life, right? It could be just giving a fish head away, or literally a million other ways we can simply help others each and every single day and transform ourselves and our character in the process. We just have to look at it. I wish you guys all an incredibly meaningful, transformative, inspirational Yom Kippur, which starts with thinking, I can transform myself, I can inspire myself, I can find meaning in it. At the same time, have a physically easy Yom Kippur. Gemar Chatima Tova, have a year ahead of tremendous simcha and nachas. As some of you have already heard from me, I think that any bracha, any blessing we could wish for ourselves can be found under the Roshei Prakim, under the heading of simcha nachas. So I wish for you all a year ahead of tremendous, tons of simcha nachas. Shana tova umituka.